So I thought I would talk a little bit about the meaning of the sun in astrology, which is something that is, it's something that we kind of take for granted almost. The sun sign is sort of like the most commonly known aspect of astrology in terms of like people tend to know their sun signs more than anything else. But what does the sun really mean? And as somebody who's interested in astrology, I've actually had to sort of admit to myself that sometimes I've had trouble understanding some of the deeper layers of the sun and kind of what the sun actually is trying to tell us, because it's not just about personality. It's not just about our ego or our how we shine in the world. It is associated with Leo in the fifth house, and Leo has a lot to do with, and the fifth house has a lot to do with how we express our individuality into and put it into the world. But I think a thought I've had about the sun is that the sun oftentimes, and this has taken a while for it to kind of really unfold to me on a level that I actually get into it and understand it, is that a lot of times, the sun actually represents kind of, yes, it does represent on one level the purpose of the lifetime, in the sense that if you look at somebody's Wikipedia page, for example, the sun sign is often the one that like we think of when it comes to basically, quote unquote, who that person was in some sense. So it can give a lot of clues into what the person's actual motivations and like what their intentions were in this lifetime. And I think to understand the sun sign deeply, to understand the different sun signs deeply, you kind of have to understand the different archetypes and the different ways and different levels in which the sun signs can show up. So I was thinking about a few people, for example, I will say, like, it is not just about personality. It's not just like categorizing people into personalities. There's a deeper soul sort of intention that the sun is speaking of. So, for example, this is just an example from my own life. Like, for example, my mom has a Taurus sun, and I know that when I'm sometime looking back at the time that I spent with her, and let's say when she's no longer with us, it sounds morbid, but like if I'm ever looking back at her life and the person that she was, I would associate some of the Taurian qualities with her lifetime. Her whole lifetime was just this Taurus sun, in the sense that no, she was not always typically Taurian in just the behavior. The sun can have to do with behavior as well and personality as well, but it's not the whole picture. So even though she was a Taurus, she is a Taurus sun, there's other things going on in her that are coloring her personality. Like a strong Aries signature is so different from Taurus, so it creates this kind of weird dynamic almost that you can see on the outside. But if I look at her life and what her life has been about, a lot of it I would associate immediately with Taurian themes of, for example, her love of nature. Like her whole life seems to be about, she's trying to get in touch with this nature and the naturalness of how things are. And so if I'm ever like looking back at her life, or if she had like a Wikipedia page, I would think, okay, her life was about these Taurus intentions. Like that was part of her motivation, part of her intentions. Me as an Aries sun, it may not be super apparent or obvious in my personality. There's so many other things that come into play, but my life, one of my life sort of, if you want to call it purpose or intentions, has to do with Aries themes. If you look at it on a deeper level, because, a lot of my time I spend on my own. I like to sort of do different things and like start projects, and I'm not very good at finishing them oftentimes and kind of following through. So those are Aries themes. A lot of my life, I've spent a lot of time kind of on my own, kind of just in my own sort of bubble in a way, and so that it has to do with Aries, the Aries nature of wanting to find your own sort of niche or just be your own person. Like it's about the self. Somebody with a Libra sun, if you look back at somebody's life who is or was a Libra sun, maybe relationships, close relationships, partnerships, had a big impact, had a theme in that person's life. There's very key themes that come to play with whatever sun sign we have. So somebody with a Libra sun may have had very key moments in their lives. I can think of one example in my life, who had a very, very key things happen in their life that has to do with very close partnerships. So what part of her mission, her soul mission, part of her, what she came here to explore, like on an conscious egoic level almost, if that makes sense, like had to do with Libra intentions. Somebody with a Scorpio sun, if you look back at their lives, if they have a Wikipedia page, a lot of their life might have to do with digging deeper, bringing about or bringing up some kind of garbage or some kind of deeper themes for people to see. Like their purpose partly in this life is or was to have some kind of investigative powers to bring about deeper, issues and things from like the underground, so to speak, and onto the surface. Someone with a Leo sun, they were, part of their intention was to perform and to sort of, bring out their own light. Even if it's not super obvious, like even if a Leo and they're not like this performer type, their soul mission still has to do with, partly at the end of their life, part of what would be obvious at the end of their life, if you're looking back at their life, would be that they were on some level about bringing their own personal creativity and their own personal individualism and their own personal intention out in a way that people can see it and they can be inspired by it. So I hope that makes sense. It's about personality to some certain degree, but personality is so individual and there's so many other factors that come into it. But when we look at the sun, this is something that it kind of has unfolded for me. The sun is oftentimes, when we look at like someone's Wikipedia page and we see their birthday, and we know immediately, okay, that's what that person's sun sign was. And so part of their life mission and their conscious involvement in the world had to do with that sun sign. Right. And no matter what form it took, because there's a lot of different ways that the different signs can show up. Someone with a Cancer sun might be, that it might be the case in their life that what their life had largely to do with was having some sort of motherly experience or some sort of family oriented experience. I know a Cancer sun in my life who has spent a lot of time in her house at home. She has really, a lot of her life has been about wanting to sort of build a family, and then eventually she did build a family. And so part of her life mission has to do with that, because she was very preoccupied with this idea of wanting to create a family. And when it wasn't working out, it was like a big theme for her that it wasn't working out. So it doesn't mean that a Cancer sun woman or person is necessarily going to, be a parent or be a mother, but one of the ways that their Cancer sun might manifest is, if you're looking back at their life, is that, okay, their theme, part of their life theme was this kind of motherly, family, parental kind of experiences. So that has a lot to do with her soul purpose then, like that it was part of her theme in life. So it can show up in different ways, and it's the sun sign is not just about the personality. It's not just about sort of like ego identity and things like that, although that can be part of it as well. But it's like, when I look at a Wikipedia page or something like that, it sounds funny, but like I see the person's date of birth and I see, okay, I can connect what their life was about and what they seem to embody in their life. and what I know about them, like this famous person or whatever, like they seem to embody the sun sign in a way that was like, there's different layers to it, right? So it wasn't just that, oh, okay, that person was a Leo sun, so he was a very, gregarious performer type. No, it's not just that. It's also that they're, maybe one of the ways that it manifested was that like they were, got caught up in their own sort of performance, and there's different ways they can manifest. So maybe they were a performer, or maybe part of their life mission was to actually understand what makes them want to perform, or what makes them want people's admiration, or something like that. Like what is behind that. And like I say, like with a Libra sun, it might be that the person had a very, very key moments in their lives that had to do with relationships, and maybe they were not Libran. Maybe that in personality, in the sense that like maybe you wouldn't look at them and think, okay, they were a Libra, because that's just personality stuff. That's like simple descriptions, and they don't always match up. You have to look at like what is the mission, the kind of the conscious mission almost, and the soul mission to a certain degree. So I'm always excited. Even just knowing somebody's, well, not always excited, but like when I see a Wikipedia page of somebody that I'm looking like a famous person, and I want to like understand them better, and like I immediately see the birth date on the page, and so I know immediately kind of some ways in which that they're like what their life had to do with, in a way that maybe they were most aware of, but other people can still see, okay, like when you were writing this page about them, like you can see that, like no matter what their sun sign is, you can see their sun sign come out in some sort of way in terms of like their life story, like, so I'm an Aries sun. I don't fit necessarily generic descriptions all the time, but if you were to look back at like what my life actually is or was, at the end of my life, you will see, okay, this person spent a lot of time, doing these kinds of things. Like they were, he was often on his own, kind of doing kind of solitary projects, and kind of wanting to open people's minds to like new ideas and things like that. And so that will show up in some sort of way. Your sun sign will show up in your life purpose in some sort of way. Whew, that was a lot, but I hope it makes sense. I just wanted to kind of make it so make some of the sun themes a little bit more clearer. I'm still on a journey of kind of learning about astrology myself, and like this is something that has kind of come into my consciousness and my awareness more, kind of the sun sign and how that has to do with our life purpose, if you want to call it that, or just some of the key themes of our lifetime. So if you want more, do subscribe and leave a thumbs up if you like this. And yeah, thank you for listening. Bye.